back to the Super Bowl year after year, and why their window, I think it's closing, like faster than it might be closed right now.
What do you think has happened to the 49ers, and why a team that was in overtime of a Super Bowl just last, earlier this year, I guess, is looking like, they're swirling the drain, and with a loss to the Bears, the year is flushed.
I think I saw a stat that it's like they have an 8% chance right now to make the playoffs going into this game, and it drops to less than 2%. You tell me. It feels like most 49ers fans are looking at like the rest of the season being like, yeah, like pack it in. We'll see you in 2025. This is why it's so hard to repeat, to get back to a Super Bowl. I know the Chiefs have made it look pretty easy the last couple of years.
It ain't.
49ers have made it look easy too, but the injury factor here cannot be ignored. And we knew that, into week one when Christian McCaffrey's dealing with the Achilles tendonitis and it's Jordan Mason, and, they're having to like turn this roster over in real time to deal with contract holdouts, from dealing with injuries, from dealing in regression of play. And then you get to the season, all this stuff just doesn't go away. I cannot stand when people believe that, because look at the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody thought, oh, they got Dak's contract done at the 11th hour. They got CeeDee Lamb done. It'll be fine. No, it's not, because when you lose time on task, which the 49ers fell in that same category this offseason, then that's a really big problem. Like, reps are important in football. Practice is important in football. Like, you can't just be like, oh, everybody's so talented. Like, forget what happens in the offseason. Let's put everybody together and just expect that it's going to be perfect.
Right. It's not a basketball game. You just can't roll the ball out there and we'll figure it out 4 or 5 times up the court together. We'll get our rhythm. No.
Exactly. And so, like, I look at this and I think, okay, a rash of injuries that they couldn't control. Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Nick Bosa, all of the things. And it stinks for them because they had such high aspirations. But, the Brock Purdy regression, should we have seen it coming? Has it been as magnified nationally as it has been potentially locally? Maybe not. I think that some people just chalk it up to, well, we expected this to happen, so we're not going to like zero in on it. But I don't think that you could have prevented against the real things that plague this team, which are losing your best playmakers. No matter when they got some of these deals done, they did lose some valuable time in the offseason, but I just think that this highlights how difficult it is to get back to the Super Bowl year after year, and why their window, I think it's closing like faster than it might be closed right now, because when you think about the undoing they're going to have to do to the roster this offseason, and the smoke, whether it's real or not, around Kyle Shanahan's job security, I just wonder if this is it for like that Niners team that was trying to become, in more than 2 decades, to go win a Super Bowl. Doesn't feel like they're any closer to that today than they were a couple of months ago.
I think if they are true contenders in another season or two, it will be the opening of a new window. It won't be the sustaining open of this. Yeah, it's going to be different. I think that Shanahan is suffering from 2 things more than anything else, Courtney, besides the obvious on-field injuries and all that plagues a football team in real time. I think he has been so thoroughly studied by every other football team, in his running game especially. He's become a tad predictable, or at least they're on to him. The league has adapted his system into their systems, so you become more familiar with it. And I also think he does this year suffer from a bit of, coach's writer's block. Whatever the dazzling Shanahan plays of just a year or two ago were, we're seeing fewer of them this year. And it seems more than just Brandon Ayuk's not out there.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that, to say that teams have figured him out, I think is on the right track, because there's variations of this offense everywhere in the NFL. And I think that's valid. I don't know if it's like the entire reason. I truly think that there's been a step back collectively with this team, because there's been so much turnover at the defensive coordinator position. Certainly the injuries that they've had for an offensive line that like was able to get Trent Williams in the fold like up until the 11th hour, because it wasn't a very good offensive line elsewhere, putting a lot of stress on your left tackle. I never thought that like all the pieces were going to come together with as much noise and like uncertainty as it felt around this team in the offseason. And some of that has to deal with the fact that this offense has been exposed in certain games this year. Yeah, injury plays into that, but I also think some of it's scheme. scheme that's pretty common now. It's a scheme that a lot of teams have to prepare for every week. And you always expect Kyle Shanahan to be able to work his way out of a paper bag, however he has to. And sometimes, at least it feels like in recent history that's he's come up short there.
Any credence on your end to what Florio concocted, the Bears 2 first-round picks for Shanahan? What stock do you put in that, Courtney?
Shouldn't it be more than that? Like when I hear these numbers about the coaching compensation, yes, I know what it was a couple of years ago from New Orleans to Denver. It's wild when you think about like the draft capital it would take, which really isn't that much. Obviously, you have to pay head coaches a lot, and there's no salary cap when it comes to head coaches. So if he wants $20 million, Bears better pay it if they're able to pull this trade off, or at least before they made the trade.
Historically, not the most generous franchise when it comes to coaches, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, they definitely don't pay coaches top dollar. So I would hope that they would figure that one out before they end up, pulling the strings on a trade. However, I get thinking outside the box and thinking about one of the best play callers of our generation of watching football and thinking that that's the right person for Caleb Williams to take him to the next step, because we've seen with mediocre quarterbacks how much production that Kyle Shanahan's been able to get out of them. I just don't know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at the end of all of this if there's a mutual parting of ways between the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, but I don't know if the Bears would end up, like, unless it came to that where he became like a free agent effectively, I don't think that they would pull off a trade. I think that's all. It's rumor season right now. I mean, Marcus Freeman, his name has been linked to the Chicago Bears job. Man's never coached a day in his life in the NFL. I don't understand it, but it's rumor season, and sifting through them, some of them are getting pretty creative, like the Kyle Shanahan one. I also heard Kevin O'Connell's name get floated as, maybe trade for him too. He and Caleb Williams seem to really like each other. I don't think it's very realistic, but I would credit the Bears if they at least tried that, to think outside the box for a change instead of settling on the safe hire.
As someone who is around the Bears as they're considering their current facilities, their new facilities, you come from Minnesota, I've never even been to Minnesota, but for a layover at the airport. But I heard, and I'd love for you to tell me, because you saw how Spartan really the 49ers facilities were in Santa Clara. Are the Vikings facilities really hands down the best in football that you've seen?
State of the art. Like, and I think that the comparison between, is it still called the SAP Center where they practice in Santa Clara, and then of course Levi's?
Yeah, you mean the aluminum field house where your dad keeps the lawnmower? Yeah, that's where the 49ers train.
I remember being out there, and obviously then going across the bridge to Oakland, to go, I lived over in the East Bay, and then to be able to like go cover the Raiders at that time, it was vastly different. But Minnesota, I will say, is the nicest stadium that I've been to in the NFL. And there's some newer ones like, SoFi, and of course, Dallas Cowboys Stadium's really nice. Atlanta's really nice. The reason I love Minnesota is because the environment in that press box, you can feel it. It's loud. When that plexiglass is in front of you, it takes away from how the true feel of covering a game. So I hope that if wherever the Bears are going to build this new stadium, wherever and whenever it happens, that they follow suit with that, and they get to go up there once a year so they see it. But Kevin Warren was instrumental in getting that stadium built in Minnesota, and so I think a lot of those intricate details of making it one of the toughest places for opposing teams to go into to play, that part will carry over. And then in terms of the overall team facilities, where they're at Hallis Hall, that's not moving. So it's not like they'd be moving and making a new stadium and then doing a whole new team facility on top of that. But they've definitely improved their facilities inside the building where they currently reside over the last couple of years too.
Are you making it out to Levi's? It feels like the story's too big for you to be back in Chicago or New York this weekend. You're going to be back in the Bay?
I will be. I'm looking forward to it.
Can we get you an Ike sandwich? What do you need, Courtney, to feel at home again?
Yeah, gosh, I know that my last game there was actually the last football game I covered before COVID. It was that really ho-hum Vikings-Niners divisional playoff game in 2020. And it was such a just bad game. I remember it was like, this is spelling the end of the Stephon Diggs era. This is the end of this Minnesota Vikings, group as we knew it, because they were teetering on the edge of are they going to trade him? Are they going to go do something else in the draft? It was just a weird time all the way around. But I'm always excited to get back to the Bay Area. That'll be my first time in 3 years out there.
God, that's how old we are. When our Stephon Diggs rumors were attached to the Vikings.
Yeah, another lifetime ago.
It really is. Courtney, awesome to catch up with you. Thank you so much for your time. Safe travels and happy holidays.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.